Welcome back, recruits. I'm Chris Nance with the Northern California Ghostbusters, and today we're going to be taking that HasLab Proton pack and we're going to take this plastic motherboard right off, and then we're going to show you how to put it right back on again. Let's get going. Before we start taking everything off on the back here, the other thing to make note of is the beamline tube and then the filler tube. These two pieces are actually attached via the back, and you can even see that the beamline tube is still a little loose from the last time. We're gonna go ahead and tighten that back up once we get it back together again too. So we've already taken the Alice frame off of here. Obviously, if you have one on there, you have to take that off first to get to everything that you need to get to. If you need a walkthrough on that, check out at the description. We'll have a link to the video that we've already produced on the subject. Next step here is gonna be take this battery door off. So, set that guy's side, I already unscrewed that. And then you're gonna notice we've got a bunch of little screws here, and it's really important because they're fairly small, pretty small screws. So you kind of want a finer point screwdriver to catch the head of that screw. If it's too broad, it will strip out the head of that screw and you will have bigger problems. No particular order to taking these out. You just kind of go slow and keep going until you think you've got everything, and then double check, because several of these deeper holes are kind of tricky. That's not immediately obvious that it's, you know, a hole for the mounting as opposed to a hole for a screw. It's really just the slow, laborious process. Especially for a lot of these deeper wells, I really recommend having a magnetized screwdriver. It'll make your life a lot easier, trust me. And I like to go just around the edges and basically work my way inwards. The only thing to make note of on this hardware is almost all of these screws are this same small screw. We have two that are going to be different, so they'll be very easy to keep track of, and we don't have to worry too much about what screw goes where. That's where I want to go. So I already got that one. I think the one I'm working on right now is actually, yep. So that is the beamline tube screw, and you'll notice it is the first one directly below the battery box. Yeah, I can feel it wiggling on the other side there.
So you're just continuing to just move around, getting all the little screws up and out.
Exactly. I'm keeping track of where I'm at, but mostly just to make sure that I get all of the screws on my first
There
pass.
are a lot of them on here, a ton.
There's a bunch. So I think these are the last four. The only thing to make note of while taking these screws out of the motherboard on the HasLab pack, almost all of them are these longer screws. There are two short screws, and they go here and here. They are the only two that are different from any of the other screws on the back of the HasLab pack. So it should be fairly easy to keep track of those two short screws, and they go there.
You double checking to make sure you didn't skip any? Because there are a lot.
And I did indeed skip one. So see,
There's the other, what's it called? It's the
There goes the filler tube.
the filler tube. Okay, it's plastic.
Yep. Oh, come on. Come on. Why you gotta do me like that? I don't like to do this because it's an easy way to lose screws. However, every once in a while when you just have one that won't come out. Oh, it's that. No. Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah, it's the filler tube. Right?
It's the beam line. So it's just the screw for the beam line. We're okay there. That's not going to stop us from taking the thing apart.
Okay.
In fact, I can back it out from this side. And there it goes.
You heard it, yeah.
Let me make sure that goes in the corrected bin. And then real quick, before we start taking everything apart, I'm going to take everything apart. Boop, ba-doop. Ba-doop, 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 ba-doop. Anything else that I don't want to get broken here? Yeah, we'll take that off too. So, before we actually remove the motherboard, make sure that you flip it around and get your cake out of the way. So this post needs to come out as well. So yeah, you do have to disassemble it a little bit. You can see now that that is done, we're gonna go ahead and start disassembling or taking off this motherboard. So this is a little bit tricky because there's a bunch of little pressure fits, as well as those tubes that I mentioned before that are indexed in a certain way. So we have to be, we want to take our time and not press too hard on any one spot. You just kind of want to go around and start freeing up the rim of this. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I'm catching on those posts. And then the other tricky thing is part of the reason why we don't want to yank this straight up we don't want to just yank this right off, is there's wiring between this battery compartment and the main board, and we do not want to yank that wiring out. So go nice and slow. Actually, it is not nearly so much of a struggle. And so very first thing, once you have it open, right out of the gate, you see the main board for the actual HasLab pack right down here. Let's come over here a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. You can also see this red and black wire pair is going right to that little yellow 2-pin JST plug marked BAT1. So the only trick to these JSTs is to get your fingernail into the groove and then carefully pull up. Be careful to get your fingers on the actual connector, not the wires, because you do not want to strip the wires out of the JST connector. And it's very easy if you come from here rather than grabbing it like that. So there we go. Motherboard separated, out of the way. And that is how you remove the motherboard from the HasLab Proton pack. Now we're going to show you how to put it back on again. Here we are again with the motherboard back. We're just going to go ahead and plug the battery compartment back in. So it's going to be the yellow 2-pin JST connection, and it's marked BAT1. So now that we've finished what we were doing inside, it's time to put the motherboard back into place. I mentioned when we very first started, there are several posts inside of the motherboard that have ridges built into them. So in order for this to go back on, we need to make sure that we get these posts lined up as correctly as possible as we go. And see, I can already tell there's one up in this corner that I'm not I'm not finding the home for, so there it is. Now, everything just clips right back on. And we're just gonna go ahead and go back. Remember my bin of screws from earlier? So don't forget, our 2 short screws go here and here. There's one started already. I just want to make sure oh yeah, you feel it clipping back into place while you screw it down. That's always a good feeling. It means you know you're in the right spot. But we're just gonna start with these 2 oddballs, get them out of the way. There we go. Nice and tight. Not too dissimilar from how I did the disassembly. I'm just gonna kind of go around the outside here. And basically keep plugging holes until I run out of screws here.
You're working top to bottom?
Yeah, I'm actually going around the edge to the inside. Just because I'm funky like that.
We just figured it might be helpful to have a video of just the removal of the motherboard and nothing else, so you don't have to sit through 20 minutes of something you're not trying to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Probably a good idea. One at a time. These 2 slots are going to be the screws that actually hold the beam line and the filler tube in place on the front of the shell. We're going to do those last because I'm going to have to actually hold the parts in place while I screw them in. These guys.
In this video, I'm just going to let Chris do his thing. I'm not going to do any jump cuts at this point or try to speed it up because sometimes people speed through the important part and you miss something and you want to see the whole process. So you can watch this at 2 times speed if you want to, but
Yep.
we're just going to show this whole thing just raw. So you folks out there can do this without being like, they skipped the part that I was having trouble on, which happens all the time when I look at how-to videos.
Yeah, just like Eddie Murphy, I'm going to be raw here. Gonna have to get me a red leather flight suit. That guy. And one left before we reattach our tubes here. This guy. All right, so last 2 screws, like I mentioned, those are the 2 front side tubes that need to be held in place, and they only index on to their slots one way. So I just happen to know what this is supposed to look like, so I can tell you exactly how it's supposed to go. This is honestly not too dissimilar from putting together my Hero Proton pack with these parts. It's pretty much exactly how I put them on. just put it on one side, held it with one hand, flipped everything on its side, and did this. Yep. And there's our beam line. It's the one that has a tube on it. You can take the tube off to make your life a little bit easier. And just like the filler tube, it also indexes on there only one way. Make sure you pay attention to the slotting there. There it is. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing. Get it into its position. Put the whole pack on its side. And then I'm going to use one hand to hold it in place. And screw it in from the back with the other hand. There we go. And set that back down there. And voila. Everything needs to be put back together. And then of course, if you're still using the stock battery box, put your batteries back in, otherwise it won't turn on when you hit the switch. It's a wild concept in electrical engineering, I know. And that's how you put the motherboard back on.